Good evening. We welcome you out to our city council meeting tonight. I've asked Councilman Turk if he will lead us in invocation, and Councilman Belston, if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear, kind, gracious, and loving Father in heaven, as we humbly bow our heads this evening at the beginning of this city council meeting, Father, we do so with gratitude and with thanks in our hearts for those many blessings that Thou hast bestowed upon us, for the blessings of this great land that we enjoy, and the freedoms and the opportunities and the economies that we are blessed with. Father, we're grateful and thankful for those blessings. We're grateful for those men and women who serve to protect and provide those freedoms for us, and we pray for blessings upon them and upon their families, that they would be watched over and be blessed for their service. We give gratitude and thanks for those who serve locally in providing those same protections and safeties for us and for our community. We pray for them and for their families also. Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have of coming and joining together as a community and of sharing together and discussing those issues this evening. We pray for guidance and direction, that as we make decisions, that those decisions would be made in the best benefit of our community and all citizens. We pray that we would be blessed and guided in our discussions, that they might be cordial, and we might be able to understand each other's feelings and be able to share each other's feelings. Father, we pray for those members who suffer from loss and from sickness or other amenities. We pray for those members of our community who stand in need of special blessings this night. We seek those blessings from their behalf. Again, give gratitude and thanks for all that Thou hast given us and does for us. And we ask for these blessings and do it in the name of Thy Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand with me for the pledge of allegiance after me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the invocation and the pledge. We'll move on to item 1, approval of the agenda. I do need to make an amendment on the agenda. Item 9B, recommendation and consideration to appoint members to the Power Board. I haven't got quite all the members contacted, and so I would like to scratch that until next time.
With that, Mayor, I'll make the motion we approve the agenda as it's posted, removing item 9B from the agenda.
I'll second.
A motion and a second.
Granger, aye.
Bellison, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Sigmiller, aye.
Turner, aye.
All right, thank you. Item 2, announcements. Anything from this body that needs to be announced? Okay. Item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. You may need to declare that this time. Item 4, consent agenda. You've read through the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many events a year do we close roads for?
Every parade.
Yeah.
We sometimes will close or just modify them for certain races or different competitive events that use our roads. Probably 3 parades,
Probably
4 parades, and
Four
then
events.
another 3 or 4.
The high school.
Wow.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as is outlined, which consists of the minutes from city council meetings 1/12/2016 and 1/13/2016. Alcohol licenses, off-premises licenses for Freeway Chevron, and on-premises licenses for St. Helens of Washington, Red Robin Gourmet Burgers, and also approving a special event.
That's separate.
Oh, that's separate. All right.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second.
Councilor Turk, aye.
Second Miller, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Allison, aye.
Thank you. Item 5, special event. Consideration to approve a special event application. Closures of streets associated with the Dogtown Half Marathon, February 13th. Justin, you here? Everybody in the audience is here for this.
Is it? That's what, they always come when I come.
Yeah.
I always bring the crowd. Hold your applause till the end. We're just here for the Dogtown Half Marathon, February 13th, 2016. There actually are no road closures for the Dogtown. We generally just will do a delineators, basically every 100 feet along the course. And so it basically just takes up maybe half a lane on those streets where the course was ran. So if there's any other questions or concerns, we'll be happy to answer those.
Same, right?
Can I ask a question? Sorry, man, can I ask a question about the, how we're coordinating with the parade of homes?
Yeah, so I had heard that there was some concern from the Parade of Homes. I know in the past we've been the week after President's Day. We thought about moving to President's Day because we wanted to see about increasing participation based upon families not being able to come down both weekends in a row. And so when we heard about the concern from the parade, we sent an email to Mari basically explaining the reason for the change, also that we had adjusted the time to go an hour earlier, which would clear most of the runners off of the course by the time the parade actually does begin. We also mentioned to her that I'm happy to meet with her and her committee to go over the course, find out where their homes are located this year, and how we could, best do that. I have not received anything back from her. I don't know if anybody on this council has, but I did reach out to her and let her know that we're wanting to cooperate in any way we can. We're in no way trying to go against the parade because I know the economic impact, the great thing it is for the community. But we just
You'll probably have a little more concern for your runners because cars and runners, who wins in that. And so oftentimes if people are trying to run and cars are coming in.
right. So in the past,
That's probably a little more concern than the ambience of the race.
right.
And the experience your runners are going to have more than your parade people.
Right. For example, 2 years ago, we ran down the road to Stookie Farms. I was in a large budget rental truck, and coming north on Stookie Farms Road, I have runners to my right, and I have a car coming down the other lane. Very scary because, again, it's a narrow road. So we decided to avoid that. We would start the race at a different location so we could make up that mileage and avoid that road. So we're always looking at ways to improve not only runner safety, but community safety, and then just to make sure that everybody's satisfied with the actual race.
I appreciate you working with them, and if we could just make sure that we committed to them, we will at least work with them
Right.
and coordinate, so over
Yeah.
the years, especially if we make any changes.
Yeah, for sure.
What do we really mean when we say work with them? I mean, we still are going to have runners on roads, and they're going to have people trying to find houses on roads. So what does that mean?
Well, in some cases, depending upon the crossing, we actually may need some controlled crossings with law enforcement. So for example, I don't remember what year it was, we were down Washington Fields Road, and they had a parade home on Majestic.
Yeah, I don't.
And that became a real problem because they needed to get cars turning up in Majestic and back out. So what ends up happening, we don't usually stop the runners, but we'll try to, of course, control the traffic. So what they've just asked us to do is that we just coordinate, especially if we move weeks, those type of things, that we try to coordinate with them. And then they'll also kind of, they'll work with us as well on the whole issue. They just want us to communicate with them.
Yeah.
So the only closure will be essentially the Staley Farm block.
Yeah, from Majestic to 3650.
No houses in between there.
Right.
They may need to find a way around that. I'm sure we'll have a parade house or two out of there because of all the
out of Majestic. Stuckey Farms, of course, but again, they can still access 3650 South and go right. We will have somebody stationed at the V of Camino Real and Washington Fields Road, letting people know that they cannot turn left there or right and go up to the backside of Camino Real. So, and we did ride yesterday with Sergeant Bickle. We did a ride with the whole course, outlining where things are needed, any additional details that they need. We're going with Work Zone tomorrow to, as far as the signs, we'll have signs up, actual lit signs, the marquee kind of things up on Thursday, February 11th, notifying people of the closures, notifying people which direction they need to go for the parking of the event.
Any other questions?
Well, I just would say, any other time or weekend from about February 1st to May 1st is filled with some other competing event too. So an event's gonna compete with something.
It always is.
Yeah, so I'm not sure rescheduling helps with any of the challenges.
We have the icebreaker tournament just here as well. We're contacting and communicating with them too. So, but it's true. It's not even just February to May. It's pretty much every weekend of the year almost. There's always something going on in this town, which is great. That's what we need. So anything we can do to bring more people to the area.
Any other questions? Now I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that the council approve the special event application, which includes the closure of streets associated with the Downtown Half Marathon on February 13th, 2016.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Turek, aye.
Segment, all right.
Nice night.
Ellison, aye.
Granger, aye.
All right, Dustin, get
Thank you
trained.
very much. All right.
You running?
All right, yeah, I'm running.
Item 6, agreement, consideration to approve the Buxton service agreement. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a considerable discussion with respect to this last night, and I know we had a good question with regards to cancellation of contract, and there is a 60-day notice of cancellation. There's a small penalty, and I would be happy also if the council feels so inclined to approve it, to continue to work with the company and liberalize that a little bit more, as much as possible. But for all intents and purposes, I mentioned last night, we are working with some additional partners to come in and support us on this contract agreement. But for all intents and purposes, for the council benefit, I would just simply say that what our recommendation would be is that the council just recognizes that we're paying this fee, and then that would be just a plus on top of that. So with that, it's of course staff's recommendation that the council consider approving the Buxton agreement in the amount of $60,000.
Any discussion on that? That we didn't already have?
Well, we had a fair amount of discussion. I'd just like to restate from last night that I think that, at least for me, it was the idea of what they can bring to the local business community and come and have workshops with the local businesses, and the information they can bring to them, I think is something that is exciting to me. We'd like to see that happen sooner rather than later.
Any additional comments? Thank you, Councilman. No, I entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the Buxton service agreement.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Start with Councilwoman President.
Granger, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Nice night.
Segment, all right.
Turek, aye.
Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you. Item 7, final plat. Consideration to approve a final plat for the Brookhaven Fields Phase 3 subdivision located approximately 3090 South 20 East, applicant Southbury Homes.
No, it's got to flip over. It's fine. There you go. You're up.
The applicant is requesting approval of the final plat for Brookhaven Fields, Phase 3 subdivision located at approximately 3090 South, 20 East. This particular subdivision is proposing 21 lots on an area of 9.37 acres. The specific location of the subdivision is zoned residential agricultural 1 acre minimum, the RA1 zone, utilizing the approved bonus density program credits. The preliminary plat was approved back on January 8, 2014. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal, and the proposed final plat conforms with the approved preliminary plat. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on January 20th, 2016. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the final plat for the Brookhaven Fields Phase 3 subdivision to City Council based on the following findings and subject to the conditions. The conditions are the standard ones, except for you'll notice on number 7. They wanted to put this in to take care of the landscaping concerns that would continue on 20 East. And so it is part of the credits that they will get with the bonus density program. And if you have any questions, I can answer.
No questions, comments? Any comments for the applicant? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the final plat for the Brookhaven Fields, Phase 3.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Third guy.
Segmiller, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Bellison, aye.
Granger, aye.
All right, that's approved. Move on to item B, consideration to approve the final plat for Steeple Washington Fields Phase 2, located approximately Steeplechase Road, 3970 South. Applicant Robertson.
The applicant is requesting approval of final plat for Steeplechase at Washington Fields Phase 2 subdivision located at approximately 3650 South Camino Real. This particular subdivision is proposing 28 lots covering 7.94 acres. The specific location of the subdivision is zoned single-family residential, 6,000 square foot minimum lots, and R16. The amended preliminary plat was approved back on March 13, 2013. Staff has reviewed the requested proposal, and the proposed final plat conforms to the approved amended preliminary plat. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their January 20th, 2016 minutes meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the final plat for the Steeplechase at Washington Fields Phase 2 subdivision to City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. And the conditions are the standard conditions. Have any questions? I'll just sit.
Any questions for Kathy? For the applicant? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that the council approve the final plat for Steeplechase at Washington Fields Phase 2, located at Steeplechase Road, 3970 South.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Granger, aye.
Bellison,
Dyson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Third guy.
Thank you. That is approved. Item 8, public hearings and related ordinances. Public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request, Z-16-01, to change present zone from open space, OS, to R18, single family residential, 8,000 square foot minimum, and C2, service commercial zone, located approximately 4300 South Washington Field Road. Applicant Stephen Sinister.
The applicant is requesting approval to change the zoning of approximately 24.12 acres located approximately at 4300 South Washington Fields Road. The requested change is from a current zoning of open space to
to the proposed service commercial and also single-family residential 8,000 square foot lot minimum R18. The portion zone C2 will be a 2 acres area bordering Washington Hills Road, and the remaining 22.12 acres will be zoned to R18 portion of the zone change. Request is shown on the exhibit in the report. Both these proposals are for the purpose of developing this area at a future date. The general plan land use designation for each location is medium density residential, which carries a 4.5 to 5.5 dwelling units per acre density ratio. The surrounding zoning is to this parcel is R18 to the north, open space to the east and south, and agriculture 20 to the west. Staff has reviewed the request zone change and finds it to conform with the general plan and the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on their January 6, 2016 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of C-16-01 for the zone change request from open space to the proposed single-family residential 8,000 square foot lots. And on your report, it was missing the C2, which is service commercial, to City Council based on the following conditions. And those are also standard conditions. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one question. Is the small portion that's identified as open space basically below the commercial? You see the commercial piece that appears to be just triangular shape. There's just a portion that remains open space. Is that owned by the applicant? It is. Is there a reason why it's not being designated as something, or why it's being kept as open space?
I will let Brandy answer that if that's all right.
She's shaking her head like she knows the answer.
She does know the answers.
Kathy Walker, Bella Ross, I appreciate her stepping in for Drew. Brandy Walker, Bush and Gudgel. The portion that we left as open space, if you remember when it went through the general plan amendment, is the hillside. And so at this point, the master plan road that would service the school will tie in just right in there. So the applicant has no intention of tearing down the hillside.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandy. Any other questions for Kathy? For the applicant? This is a public hearing, so we invite you, the public, that might be interested in this project or non-interested in this project, to come up and offer any of your concerns or comments at this point. If not,
There appears there are none.
I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll motion to close the public hearing. Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Stewart, aye.
Second, all right.
Dallas and I.
Ranger, aye.
Thank you. Item B, to consideration to approve an ordinance approving zone change Z-1601 to change present zone from open space to R18 and C2.
Mayor, if there's no more discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the zone change Z-16-01 to change present zone from open space to R18 and C2.
Councilman Turk, prior to a second, I did have one question for Kathy. Kathy, did we make certain as staff that the appropriate notices were sent out?
Yes.
Okay. Do we recall how many notices that included?
There were 5.
To doing proper notice? Okay, thank you. Mayor, I'll second Councilman Turk's motion.
Thank you.
Stewart, aye.
Second, all right.
Dallas and I.
Ranger, aye.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. Another public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request Z-16-02 to change present zone from R16 single-family residential 6,000 square foot minimum to planned unit development, PUD, located approximately 190 west and 300 north. Applicant same price.
The applicant is requesting approval to change the zoning of approximately 0.958 acres located approximately at 190 west, 300 north. The requested change is from the current zoning of single-family residential 6,000 square foot lot minimum, the R16, to a proposed plan unit development, the PUD zoning designation. The PUD request is for the purpose of developing a parcel into multifamily townhome apartment project. The general plan land use designation for this location is medium high density residential, which carries a 7 to 12 dwelling unit per acre density ratio. The proposed project would have an 8.35 dwelling unit per acre ratio, well within the general plan stated density. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is R16 to the west and south, mobile home to the east, and the I-15 to the north. This parcel recently applied for an R3 multifamily residential zoning designation and was denied. It was mentioned that a PUD may be a better possibility, so the applicant is back with this proposal. Staff has reviewed the requested zone change and finds that it conforms to the general plan and the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their January 6, 2016 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of C-16-02 for the zone change request from single-family residential 6,000 square foot lot, the R16, to the proposed planned unit development, the PUD, to City Council based on the following findings and conditions. Usually a zone change doesn't have conditions, it can, but on a PUD there will always be conditions. Do you have any questions?
I've been struck by how beautiful that piece of property is with those tall trees and how difficult it's been to find a solution for using that land. There's another solution that hasn't been considered and probably won't be, but if we had our nonprofit status, someone could donate that land to the city and reap the benefit of that, and we could turn it into a gorgeous park with a stream running right through it because there's water through it. I just wanted to throw that out.
Just so you know, Councilwoman, they still can do that and get tax benefits because we're of the, so if anybody wants to do that, that's still an option. Don't think that she's discouraged you from doing that.
That said, I had two concerns again that perhaps are not as specific to this, but it's so close to I-15. I'm hoping that there will be a wall there that will cause some noise abatement for the people that move into this area, and I'm hoping that in the construction there's additional noise abatement within the construction that goes on so those people have homes that are not impacted by the noise of I-15.
We have a group here representing the applicant that may be able to address all of your concerns with this. They have the materials, the elevations, and everything, and I would prefer to just turn the time over to them. Not that I don't want to answer your questions, it's just they have the answers, and it's probably more appropriate to come from them because there might be a commitment that has to be made. So I will turn that over to them.
Thank you, Ken. While they're coming up, this is, again is a public hearing, so after they get through, if there's any of you out there that want to voice an opinion, you're welcome to.
Okay, shoot.
My first question is, would you like to donate the land?
As the owner of the property, no.
Okay. The other is, what will you be doing to abate the noise from I-15?
Well, there are residents on that street who are
Excuse me,
working.
before we get going, can I get your name, please?
Randy Mortensen.
Thank you.
Well, my name,
Please?
Jim Price.
Okay.
There's residents working on that street, working with UDOT to receive a grant to build a sound wall along I-15 in that stretch. They get X thousands of dollars per front door in that grant to go towards building the fence. It's something in the effect of $30,000 to $34,000, I believe, per front door, which our project will add 8 more front doors towards that grant. So that would be a plan that's kind of in process.
What if they don't get the grant?
Then I guess there's no wall. I mean, we can't build a 20-foot tall wall. The noise is there now, the noise will be there after the unit is built.
It's my understanding the plans are trying to keep a lot of the big trees that are there on that site, correct? Councilwoman Granger and I went and walked it. The storm drain creates some issues on that lot. I don't know if anybody else has walked it, but it limits quite a bit of what can be done there. So I think that given the layout of this and given what an R16 zoning could be there, I think it's probably a good compromise.
As far as the trees, most of those trees will stay. They're cottonwood trees, and every year part of those trees come down with the wind. The city went over there and cut a few down and just left them there for us. But I don't believe there's any of the trees that will come out. Henry Mendoza is the owner of the trailer park up there, and he and I walked it. He would like some of the scrubby stuff pulled out, which would enhance his. And but as far as 90% of the trees will stay.
What about, one of the thoughts I had is on your frontage there to, is it 200 North that comes along your frontage? And I can't tell by drawing, I don't see, my thoughts are of a wall along the front of that bordering the street. Can you tell me, is there a wall there? And if there isn't, considerations to put one?
Well, I think that would be part of the drainage plan and the landscape plan that we would need to submit to the building department for approval.
Did you want this shown?
But could become a part of that as far as that
It's not
goes?
sitting on it.
There would be a portion of, I see it probably diamond block on that front retention on the left.
Okay. One of the concerns that I have, and the reason I even asked for a wall there is your parking's pretty limited, and overflow parking will have a tendency to spill to that street, which we're trying to discourage. If people have to walk that park there and come, if they just jump lots, obviously the street becomes very conducive for parking. So where if we funnel them in to have to come in the roadway, hopefully they stay off our streets parking wise there, because the way the road turns and whatnot, I can see we've got a challenge. So certainly would appreciate some considerations there, possibly wall that front to help us with that.
Now, when you say wall, are you talking a fence wall?
Yeah, cinder block wall, 4 foot tall.
If we was to put a wall there, we would take down cottonwood trees.
Right along the frontage of the roadway?
No.
I don't recall any being quite that close to the road, but it's been a while since I was there with you last time I was there, so I wasn't paying attention to exactly where those trees were. But one of the biggest concerns that I have in any types of these projects is the parking situation, because obviously we know that they have guests that come and stay, and where that parking spills to. So we try to keep as much of that in the project, and you have a little bit of overflow parking there. My concern was just if it's enough, I'm trying to keep it from spilling to the streets.
Yes, we have 8 additional parking spaces, plus the garage, plus the driveway for guest parking when guests come.
Yeah, most households have 2 cars, So your garage and driveway are taken up. You got 8 units and 8 parking stalls, so everybody has more than one guest, we've got a problem. So, that's just my concern.
It's a playground right on the backside?
Correct.
On the north side there?
Correct.
Is this, is this fairly consistent with what it was as a PUD prior to several years ago?
Yes. I believe the parking was expanded.
Yes, we actually added parking for this format.
But overall, the makeup, the buildings, the number of units is fairly similar to what was approved several years ago.
Correct.
Expired,
It's
or
exact.
you guys de-zoned it, I guess, correct?
Well, the zoning reverted, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Taking a look at just the Google map on that, canceled church question. So it looked like there would have been enough room to put that 4-foot block wall without removing trees. It may be that Mike, is this going to have roadway, lane, what, that's what?
You're widening the road, what, 10 feet, 12 feet right there?
Yeah, we have to put in curb gutter and widen the road from edge of property line all the way down to the edge of our property line, which is on the curb.
Are you making any changes to the storm drain that goes through there?
No.
So the storm drain that goes across the north side and drops down the west side, that doesn't need to be
That'll be the
modified at all?
That'll be a retention for the complex itself. Our runoff water will go into that.
No, I'm talking about the stuff that comes underneath the freeway, because that's running two directions right there.
That's all on freeway property.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? How about anybody out in the public? Like we have one.
My name is Daniel Flood, I'm a resident here. We're very familiar with this area and with the mulberry trees that are in question. The common ones are most in the northeast corner. The mulberries are off to the west side. One of my concerns is, isn't there a main irrigation channel that comes through that area? By looking at that from what I can see, it looks like a majority of that cuts through where the building is proposed. How are they going to deal with the city changing water back and forth in that particular area? That's my first question. And everything off to the east side, is the green area where they're not going to touch anything, that's just open space? Because to the west there, it appears that is more of a kind of a wetlands kind of area as it is right now. I don't know if that's officially designated as that, but it seems like that area is cattails and seeps and springs. Is that under different consideration since it's not a official stream? Or I'm trying to understand if there's any type of mitigation not mitigation, but consideration of working with the wetland area in developing this particular piece. That kind of question I have.
You want to address that, man?
Yes.
Can
I pointed out to you, that ditch that he's talking about water, right there is the pipeline that goes to a box, and then will be right underneath the driveway. So that's existing. The part he's talking about, that's the wet area, is actually right here on and beyond the property line on the south side over here, or the west side over there.
And none of that was, in fact, I know we got a letter stating that none of that was wetlands when I brought this project through on the first time. And the green area up there where the playground, there used to be a spring there, but because of the building that has taken place up above, it's cut that off. When they did their storm drains and their sewers up these streets, it's cut that flow of water from coming down there. So it's dry.
time. Any other questions, comments?
Ken Adams, Washington resident, also. I own a property just south of there. Are these going to be rental units or sold? Sold. And then on that, my concern is the irrigation water also. I don't want to disrupt that because that's my irrigation.
We don't want to interrupt.
No.
I don't want those phone calls.
No. The apartments, I just should not be there. But they're selling for condo, that's different.
Thanks, Ken.
And to clarify that, the owner, developer selling those units, that doesn't mean that whoever buys the units are not going to be renting them, however. So, I hate, sometimes you walk away thinking, oh, they said they never rent these things. And the individual purchasers may do that, though, obviously.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Anybody else?
Mayor, I've got a few comments. In considering this proposal, I've gone back to our PUD statute, or ordinance, I guess, which I'm glad we have, and it has a section that indicates, well, it's just at the beginning of the ordinance, the purpose and intent section. And the more I read it and study it, the more I probably am not sure how to apply this ordinance. I wanted to read two of the sections and then just maybe have that guide some discussion or some consideration. I'm going to read sections B and C of 9-8F-1. And it's entitled the Purpose and Intent section. B is the planned unit development zone is intended to be used in newly developed areas to ensure compatibility of PUD-type projects with existing development. PUDs may also be used as a vehicle for developing centers of blocks in older areas of the city, where these areas have become difficult to develop by conventional subdivision methods, and as an alternate to single-family subdivisions. This zone may, however, have application at the request of the applicant and approval of the Planning Commission and City Council in any location and on any parcel. Subsection C. The planned unit development zone is not generally intended for the small parcel of land already adjacent to a multifamily or commercial zone, but rather for large parcels or combinations of parcels joined together for planning purposes and development according to a general overall planning concept. PUDs are not intended to be used in single-family residential zones to allow multifamily dwellings on vacant lots with street frontage and located between two other single-family dwellings. Parcels of vacant property located in the centers of blocks shall be combined together using common access driveways to qualify as a planned unit development project. And so I've tried to just reconcile kind of what I see as conflicting statements in the purpose and intent. On one hand, it's available for any location and on any parcel. On the other hand, the council that approved this ordinance indicated there were certain uses that were, I'll say, more preferable for the PUD than not. This parcel is unique because it doesn't meet any of those either preferences or lack thereof, but it does meet a few of them. And I'm not suggesting that the council or members that recommended the PUD were patently wrong in recommending it. What I do think these statements bring up is the concern that I would have with putting this there next to single-family residential, and the concerns that when you put a multifamily residential next to single-family residential, there becomes parking and traffic concerns that the owners of those single-family houses or properties never intended would occur.
Council, I appreciate your concerns and what you bring forward there. I'll share a little bit after having gone up and walked this particular parcel that I think that a PUD does fit in this area for the mere fact that it butts up to a trailer court on one side, the freeway to the back of it, and then it really slopes off to this wetlands area that we've seen. So it's kind of its own little unique parcel there that it does abut single family, of course, to the south of it. But part of the reason I encouraged it to go PUD is so we could kind of get it to fit within those parameters of challenges that were there without interrupting the people on the hill that had their place and the neighbors next door. And so I guess in what you've read, I kind of read the first portion of that as saying this is kind of where that fits into is that unique parcel in a developed part of town that kind of has its own set of challenges there.
And just to follow up to your comments, which I agree with, as far as if we had done just straight zoning, we wouldn't have the ability to consider these type of details at this phase.
Absolutely.
And so I do appreciate that that's available.
To expand on that, the fact that there's irrigation running right through the middle of the property presents quite an issue with building. So, you know, how do you lay that out without tearing it up and you know, rerunning all of that?
Is the irrigation line coming down that driveway because that's where it connects at the street level? Is that where the city pipes are? Where does it connect to the city property?
It goes under the road.
At the point that this map shows the connection?
I don't know if I'm tall enough here.
Right there, so.
Crosses the road on kind of an angle. It goes down that property line.
I think it's open ditch on the other side.
We relocated that ditch. It was an open ditch all the way through the property. And we run pipe through there in order to put our units the way they are. It's a very difficult piece of ground to do anything with the irrigation. Water has to flow downhill, and so we can't change where that water goes. It was platted there by Rosenberg and Associates, and that is where it has to be. Then we have on the, like you say, on the west side, we have that drop off where it gets wet, and we can't build back there. We can't build closer to the freeway, and we can't build closer to the trailer court. So the footprints that we have there work perfectly. We felt like the off-street parking was sufficient, and it's just for the piece of property, it's the best thing to do. I hope you agree. Everybody says, yeah.
Randy, just a question. In the open space area, do you found, is that going to be grass?
Around the playground area, there may be some grass, but most of that is going to remain kind of hilly, and it'll probably be covered with chaff.
Okay.
The weeds in that area are horrible.
That was my concern, is it doesn't turn into a weed patch where we leave it open space. It's all it's going to be natural, because you know what natural will be up there.
Right. And Henry Mendoza, the slope between our property and his, he and I talked about some things that we can do there to enhance his. He's got a retaining wall there that's out of telephone poles, and we're going to work it.
Just as long as we're treating that with some type of a ground cover that's conducive to children. And I think your chaff you mentioned probably would be that, especially down to those trees.
Those trees drop a lot of leaves, a lot of branches, and it's difficult to clean up if you don't have something down there that is solid base.
So I actually have two questions. I assume you're going to have, well, you'll have to with you have CCNR set up, and then have maintenance and all that set up. The other thing is, what by ordinance, what's required on parking, and how many are you showing?
Tell me the answer to that.
I get your name?
Carl Rasmussen, sorry. There's 24 spaces for parking.
So you can't have two per stall, one in the garage and in the driveway, and then
One in the garage, one in front of the garage, and then you count the ones on the back, that's 3 per unit.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Going once, twice. Guess I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
One motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Thank you. And a motion?
Granger, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you. Councilman Sagamore need to be excused for a little bit. Okay. Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to item D, consideration to approve an ordinance approving zone change Z-1602 to change present zone from R-16 to PUD.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve zone change Z-16-02 to change present zone from R16 to PUD. As a caveat to that, to thank these developers for being willing to come back and work with us by putting this PUD in.
Second that motion.
A motion and a second.
Granger, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, that is approved. Appointments, recommendation, consideration to appoint a new member to the Planning Commission first. Before I do that, make a recommendation. We have an excellent planning commissioner, Lori Shepherd, and I want to thank her for her service. It's not easy all the time to be a public servant, but we appreciate what she did and has done for our city and the planning commission. It's my recommendation that we have Van Fetsompu be the next planning commissioner to take her place. Any comments on that? Is Van here? I didn't see him. Laura, you here? Is anybody here? I'll entertain a motion for approval.
A motion that we appoint, I'm going to butcher her name,
His Van Fetsompu.
A motion that we approve him.
And if you're here, Van, no offense for that.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Granger, aye.
You know what? That'll probably be a first in Washington City to see that name right there. That last name. We're going to forego item B again. Rat tax. Consideration to approve the distribution of rat tax funds. We'll start with, you all have a preference who we start with? We'll start with Brigham's Playhouse. Okay. Most things you understand. This is first for us and a first for you, I'm sure. And so, you want Jamie to state what he had applied for the amount, or you want to just discuss and offer? This is Jamie Young, by the way, the owner of Brigham's Playhouse.
You're right, Mayor. This is kind of a unique, because we've never done this before. So I'm not sure really what the appropriate way it is. I'm certainly, probably the appropriate thing may be to have Jamie just kind of go over basically what you're asking for the public, what you're asking for, and how they're going to be used, just so the public knows what you apply for.
We're grateful for the opportunity to speak this evening, and if I might just thank those that have come out in support today. Thank you. We've been in operation for 2 years. We are doing well, but still struggling financially, and with the institution of the rat tax this past year, we felt that it would be fitting to request some subsidy to our operating budget. We are doing all we can to cut costs and still maintain the operations that the community has come to love and appreciate. The packet that I've put forth indicates that we're requesting $65,177, which is approximately 12% of our operating budget. I came prepared today to mention all of the economic impacts and stimulus to the city. The last 2 days, as we've seen the outpouring of community support, my heart has changed a little, and I would just like to emphasize the human impact that the Playhouse is having on the community, the enrichment, the healing, the embetterment of the community as a result of the existence of Brigham's Playhouse. And I would encourage the council members to keep that in your considerations as you're deciding a difficult decision on how to use these very important tax dollars.
Any questions for Jamie?
You mentioned in one of your application letters the involvement of youth, and certainly those letters, many of them address that. Could you, in your budget, it is a little more difficult to see the correlation between what you're asking the money go to and the additional involvement of youth that you mentioned. Could you speak to that for a moment?
Certainly, thank you for the question. Most of the monies that we are requesting would be put forward to the licensing or royalty fees for productions, with an additional portion going to help us with marketing of those shows. The productions themselves that we're requesting funds for are the productions that provide the opportunities for the youth in the community. In addition to those productions themselves, we do offer summer camps and other kinds of enrichment activities for youth. And for example, currently we are in rehearsals for a production of a musical called Honk. And I believe there are some cast members here today.
40 of them.
40 here today.
No, 40 of the Honk members are children.
Yeah, 40 of them are children currently that are involved with that production. And that show cost us, if I'm remembering, just for the licensing fees, about $3,500.
How do they come up with the 7% on the financial sponsor? Where does that 7% come from?
That was something that Arts Incorporated, the fiscal sponsor, came up with in consultation with their accountants. Most of the entities that they are a fiscal sponsor for, they charge 10%, and I was able to negotiate that down to 7%.
Do you think there's any more wiggle room to that, or 7 the hard line? That was one of the things as we discussed with the council last night that kind of seemed to be a little sticking point, is the fact that you got a nonprofit sponsor that says, well, I want to skim a little as it comes through us, and I don't know what all that entails. But that was some concern the council had. And one of the things we wanted to ask is if there may be some opportunity to negotiate even less or none of that, but say, hey, look, help us along here. You know, we're trying to survive with you. So.
I don't know if Ernie Deuce is here today. I had the same concern, obviously. In our working with Ernie, he's been delightful to work with, and you know, we understand that he's got his operating expenses and things too. But the encouraging thing is that we are in negotiations with him to have Brigham's Playhouse actors go into the schools at the financial support of Arts Incorporated. So what I'm saying is we foresee that some of this money, if not all of it, is going to come back our way and get us into the schools doing productions that are going to help students. For example, we've created an original production called Misfitting In, which is an anti-bullying production based on a true story that happened in my own children's school district in Wyoming. And we've toured that show into schools in the past, and it's had a great impact. We believe that Arts Incorporated is going to be able to help fund us getting into those schools for, if not that production, others that are similar to it. We've had those discussions already.
There's 10 different plays on here. Are these for this year? Are they reimbursements for last year? Are they for the next couple of years?
Yes, thank you. These are all for this year, those productions that are listed on the document there.
Jamie, and you're probably a little bit aware of this, the way that the previous council or the city has set up our application process, where we actually go through this twice a year. So you have an opportunity to apply now and be awarded some, and again in June and be awarded some. How would your feelings be, simply because the RAP tax is so young and the city's collecting that? Maybe my question is, how cumbersome is the application process, and how would you feel about funding some now and some then?
The process itself, is not the issue for me. The way that licensing of a season goes is you do that at the beginning of the season. We're already about 2 months past when we should have had the licenses paid for all of the productions. And so for us, that $42,000 licensing fees right up front is the main issue there. Certainly we'll do whatever we can to accommodate your situation as well, though.
Well, that's good information, because we don't understand how.
Sure.
For us, it's when you're ready to do a play, you pay the license and do one, and then again. So basically, you're buying all those licenses and saying whether the play ever happens or not, you put out the funds.
Yeah, to be able to promote the entire season and sell those tickets through the whole season, the license fees have to be in hand.
Good.
Up until this point, has it been just coming out of your pocket?
Yes. Yeah, we do have, and here in our audience, there are some of our sponsors as well, donations and businesses who are our sponsors that we advertise for. And so that has been also very helpful to us.
But even still, you're showing in the red, right?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Well, just a statement. Have been impressed with the quality of the communication that we got from the community and support. Not by beauty, by quality. A lot of warmth, as you suggested. Involvement, loyalty, all expressed. Was impressive.
Thank you.
I might echo those same sentiments. I think that's really kind of what this tax was passed by the citizenry for, is these types of events that provide an extra quality of life for local residents and even many outside the area we have noticed and whatnot. So we certainly appreciate your willingness to locate in Washington and what you bring to our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the warm welcome.
How many, over the years, what's your visitors? How many visitors have you had? How many ticket sales, things like that? I mean, is it continually growing? What do you forecast for the next couple of years?
Our first year we had about 17,500. The numbers are in the document. Our second year we had close to 25,000 that came through our doors. And these are just audience members, not participants in the production. We had about 700 participants in the production this last year, in all of the productions. This next year we're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping for 30,000, and we do believe that will continue to increase.
Is that a break-even number for you?
The break-even number would be about 30,000 for us, and by break-even I mean all of our expenses, but not owners' compensation by any means.
The request is for some assistance now, and obviously for this budget year. What do you anticipate for next year and future years?
My hope is that we'll become self-sustaining, and the outreach programs that we intend to do in the future, we want to be able to fund ourselves. That's the goal, is to become self-reliant, self-sustaining in the future. That's why we've organized ourselves the way we have. So our hope is to do that. I'm assuming that we're going to need a couple of years of requesting some assistance, but I do believe that will scale down. Some of the things that we would like to be able to do is provide additional artistic training and opportunities and expand in that area. And if the city is interested in supporting those kinds of things, that would be kind of ancillary to what we're already doing, and we might come back and request assistance for those kinds of things if we feel like there's public support for their tax dollars to be used in that kind of a way.
Yes, you have to come up and speak in the mic, please.
I just saw 29
I
live.
need to say,
I'm Elizabeth Bingham, and I'm a resident of Washington City. And I'm excited about Brigham's Playhouse too. It's nice to have some local theater here. But I'm just wondering if you are planning on staying a for-profit organization or if you're in the application process for nonprofit.
This is the question that I get all of the time. Just for the council's information and for the public as well. I spent a career in the not-for-profit sector, and I've seen the pros and cons of that. In the theater world in particular, in not-for-profit organizations, what I have seen is that the original intent and mission of the company slipping and sliding, particularly in the area of moral degradation, is where I'm most concerned. And I have found that in almost every instance, an organization that starts with the intent to be a family-appropriate organization, material that children can enjoy and participate in, as well as adults that have those values, has slid over time. And just to be totally honest, I do not want to see that happen in the case of Brigham's Playhouse. My great-grandfather's picture hangs on the wall, and everything that happens on that stage would be approved by him. And I don't want to see that slide and fall. We are a for-profit entity that now has that not-for-profit umbrella. Our intent is not to make money. We do have our own families to consider, but our objective is not to be gaining wealth for ourselves. I have been researching and teaching theater for the last 2 decades at the college level. I'm very familiar with the financial prospects of a business in the theater, and they're not intended to make profit. That's not why we're in this. It is to impact the community and to make the world a better place by what we do. And the reason why we are a commercial entity is not for profit, but for control of values and standards.
So that then brings up 2 issues. One is the way the law is written, that it has to be 501c3, which I understand you got your umbrella, which has been expressed that we rather, if we're going to donate funds, rather donate to you rather than through some outside organization. The other one is maybe I don't understand how a 501c3 would affect values. Because you're still at liberty to run the plays that you want to run, correct?
Well, there are theater organizations right within our county, several in fact, that started with mission statements to promote wholesome, uplifting family entertainment. And because those organizations are not controlled by one individual, but controlled by an ever-changing body or group of people, the values and standards of those organizations can and have, in the cases of these other organizations right here in our county, have slid below what their original intentions were.
And that's a requirement of 501c3s to run under a board and says.
Correct.
Any other questions for Jamie? Did you want to say something?
I'm in support of it.
Carol?
Sure.
And Mike Smith, just a local resident, or not a Washington resident, all right? Just in looking at this, I've been involved with the Friggin Playhouse, and I think the main problem, of course, is getting the word out. Everybody knows about two of them. But that little, beautiful little place down in Washington, that little enclave going down there, Regatti's is in there now, it's starting to kind of grow. It's good for the city. But getting the word out is really a problem, and this is almost looks to me more like a home primer for just a little bit there to kind of get them started and get them on their way there, kind of. And that we get that done, the city is going to make out big time in the long run. That's my from outsiders' observation.
Thanks,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, Carol Long. I just have a question about what are our anticipated revenues this year. How much of a percentage are we talking about? Do we have any
When
idea?
it's all said and done.
Depends on whose numbers you want to look at. And that's one of the things we discussed last night. We don't want to spend anticipated numbers. We want to spend real numbers. And so that was kind of our hesitation. Part of the reason we set up twice a year is that we could
adjust.
Exactly. That we don't overcommit, and we can make sure we don't undercommit.
We've collected about $100,000.
So far. So when did that begin? Was it the middle of last year? I don't know.
October,
The fall of last year.
September.
So it's not okay. So it's not unreasonable to think that on an annual basis, a couple $100,000 would come into the city.
They projected about $300,000 for that's what they're using as projections, and of course that depends on the economy. Economy stays strong, we do well. Economy dumps, we run out.
Tied into sales tax, right?
That's all it is, it's sales tax. That's the only thing it is.
So 200,000 would be probably a safe conservative estimate.
Yeah.
So you're asking for about a third. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Carol.
My name's Rosie Crosby. I'm a citizen of Washington City. And I just want to, my question is directed to Councilmember Colleen Granger. We've worked together in the school district, and we've seen the decline in the cultural arts in the schools. And so when we have Brigham State House in our city, I think as citizens of Washington City, we should take ownership of what this is giving our community, what we are receiving from them as citizens of Washington City. I remember when Tuacahn was a tiny little place and they was trying to get built, and I remember fundraising, and I remember doing all the things that I've seen these folks do to get. But I remember a lot of support from the cities around here in southern Utah, if you can remember that. And I want to show as a citizen our support, and I wish that the council would, along with the mayor, would also take ownership and take pride in this venue, in this what we are accomplishing here in our community.
Thanks, Rosie.
My name is Jason Hansen. I am also a resident here in Washington County and been a longtime supporter and involved person within the arts. And I was thrilled when Britain's Playhouse came to Washington City and began their productions. I've been involved in other community theaters here in the area, and currently am still involved in other community theaters in the area as a paid employee. I've also had the opportunity to work with Britain's Playhouse directly, and there is a feel difference between what we see in the other theaters and what you see and feel and experience at Britain's Playhouse. When we talk about the community outreach, when we talk about the extension of what is being offered to the schools, I'm a graduate of Dixie High School and Russ Saxon Theater Program. And in our theaters today, we've got tremendous palaces to theater, but they only do one, maybe 1.5 shows any given year, which doesn't give the kids a lot of opportunity to come and practice, either on the technical theater side nor on a acting side. Bergen's Playhouse, the community theaters in the area, provide those opportunities for people who are really interested in pursuing this not only as a career, but also as an extension of themselves, to develop their talents and abilities. And because Bergen's Playhouse is putting on 12 shows every single year, there's practical application multiple times throughout the year for shorter runs that are more conducive to family life than some of the other theaters can provide. If you've ever tried being in a show at Tuacahn, they basically own you when you go out there because it's all summer long, right? But shows like Bergen's Playhouse make it possible for community members to have regular jobs and also express their talents and abilities in ways that they wouldn't otherwise get. I'm very much in support of being able to provide a little bit of that RAP tax for excellent institutions such as Bergen's Playhouse. And in complete support of that, and in the ongoing requests that may come over the course of the next year or two, because I know the vision that these guys have and the desire that this is like the last type of request. They don't want to have to come and take tax money, but they also believe in what they're doing wholeheartedly. And this is one of those things where if there's a way that it's going to make a difference, this is one. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kelly Olson. I've been a resident of Washington for about 8 years now. I won't take much time, but I just want to say that every community eventually has a theater when they want to become a true community. And the opportunities that we have in this city, this is our only theater that we have now. My family's involved in theater, and my kids love doing theater when they have the opportunities. And I've had a chance to work on stage, behind stage a lot with them. And all the kids, Jamie mentioned 700 community members that have had an opportunity to be on the stage and learn and do this. Councilwoman Granger mentioned about kids and opportunities. These are kids that are choosing to be in the theater. They're not on the streets. They're not wandering around. They're doing things. They're growing as people, learning how to interact. When I'm there, these kids that are teenagers, that adults go to the park, and if the kids come by the adults, the kids are ready to go off. They don't want to interact with the adults. In the theater world, we all learn to interact with each other. And the things that are opportunities for kids. My kids aren't home on screens when they're rehearsing for shows there. Some kids don't like sports. We just spent millions of dollars for the soccer park, which is right by my house, which is wonderful. It'll bring in some wonderful things there, but some people don't like sports. They like the arts and the theater, and to have this many opportunities. A playhouse with this many productions is very uncommon. And these opportunities for our community right here at home, I think is something we need to seriously consider, especially with the problems they've had in the past paying for licensing fees and actually losing a show, and that really creates a problem. Getting those licensing fees paid up front are so critical to continue on with the marketing and things, and people to plan for that and give all the community, especially the kids that are looking for something wonderful to participate in.
Thank you.
I'm Sadie Best, and I'm a Washington.
Sorry, what was your name?
Sadie, S-A-D-I-E, Best.
Okay,
And
thank
I'm
you.
a Washington City resident. And I think enough has probably already been said about the worth of Brigham's Playhouse, but I wanted to stand up and voice my support, and it brought my kids to sit through this very long meeting. because they love Brigham's Playhouse. My older two children, Autumn and Brad, if they want to stand up and wave to the council, have performed on the stage of Brigham's Playhouse, and what a wonderful experience that was for them. They learned so much and were able to grow and develop their talents. I too have performed on the stage of Brigham's Playhouse for the first time in 10 years. I did a show there at Brigham's Playhouse, thanks to Jamie, who encouraged me to come and audition for a show, and it was a wonderful experience. And I just want to encourage the council to put money into the arts, because the arts truly are a gift. They are a gift to the residents of the community and to everyone who visits our city, and I don't think we can really put our money in a better place. And so that's all I wanted to say today.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is John Blasco. I am a relative newcomer to Washington City, Washington County, and I am delighted to be here. We moved our family down from Anchorage, Alaska. I like to say we moved from the freezer to the frying pan. I know that Jamie has the financial aspects, and I'm sure he could deal with it better than I am. But I'd like to direct the council to a study that was done by the Americans for Arts, and the study is Arts and Economic Prosperity. And with us talking about taking taxpayers' money and putting it into a theater, we have to view that as an investment. And in that study, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but there are 2 points I want to make. The study has shown that although attendance in the events, this was done in the middle of the economic decline, and so there was a decline in attendance because, quite frankly, people didn't have that discretionary numbers or money to spend. But they found that the average person who attends a theater production spends $24.60 elsewhere in the community. They come, they go to the theater, and afterwards, what do? Well, they might buy gasoline, they might go to the restaurant.
Ice cream at the Red Barn.
And ice cream, very excellent ice cream at the Red Barn, or now within Brigham's Theater itself. I just want to read one quote, and then I'll be finished. Culture may not be as valued in the United States as it is in Europe, but if jobs and economy are, if small businesses are, then there needs to be a paradigm shift towards understanding that artists and arts groups are essentially entrepreneurs and small businesses contributing to the growth and stability of the nation, one community at a time. I want to express my feelings that what a valuable resource we have. And I want, in all fairness, and I have been on Brigham's stage as well. And in my case, I was 47 years, and I had an opportunity. What an asset that we have. And I would challenge and ask that you take this into consideration when you're looking at the distribution of the RAP funds. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sir.
Sir.
Yes.
You live up on Coast Circle, right?
I happen to live in a house that somebody might have built here. Yeah.
How is it doing?
I have to be honest with you. It is probably the most well-built house that I've ever been.
It
was true.
It was my very first home.
I've had conversations with your father about that, and I'll tell you, the view is spectacular. Thank you, Troy.
Troy, you're shameless, and I want to know what the school district is.
I'm Elizabeth Bingham. I really appreciate all the comments from the community, and I am very much in favor of Brigham's Playhouse. I just saw Kelly change his clothes. I don't know how many times. How many times, Kelly? 30 times in this lifetime. So there's nothing like community theater, and I really want to see it succeed. I just have one concern about it, and It is that we have a for-profit organization running nonprofit money through another third entity to come back to them. And I know our RAP taxes have a lot of limitations on them, and I just want to make sure maybe our city attorney can make sure that these RAP taxes that we have can be used in this way, because I don't want in any way, to put Washington City at risk for receiving further taxes so that we can continue to support this Brigham's Playhouse.
No, so we're going to completely reject and consider.
Yeah. No, I know it's a tricky thing.
This is new for us too.
It is.
It's clear that the sponsoring, because the nonprofit entity requirement was placed on to RAP tax applicants, it was anticipated that some would be going through sponsoring organizations, whether it's because they were set up first or because they chose not to. At any rate, that was anticipated by the county as they started to do it. They were the first organization to really put some time and effort into it. As we've looked at it to the extent we have, it appeared that that's kind of the intent of it, was for groups like the Playhouse. So we haven't seen a problem with it so far, and
I just
this
don't want to
information we got seems appropriate.
I don't want to put any of our future funds at risk. So I'm sure that you'll clear, because it was my understanding that RAP taxes could only go to nonprofit organizations. Having said that, I'm on the board of directors at Tuacahn, and the board, I know you've had bad experiences with nonprofits and boards, but the board at Tuacahn is supposed to be a family-friendly theater, and hopefully for the most part it is. When we see things on the board that aren't, we'll call them out, and they'll be changed in the play. And I'm thinking that in Washington City, if you get people that are similarly minded and want to keep this clean, family-friendly, which I think most of us do, then you have a board of directors, and you can organize yourself as a nonprofit, and that board monitors. It's going to be easy to monitor Brigham's Playhouse, because I saw your lineup for the year, and it's great. But to have the board monitor and keep it family-friendly, because we want that in our community, and that way you can be, you can have all the benefits that nonprofits have too. I know I'm lecturing to an expert here, but I just want to keep our RAP tax funds safe. So, thanks.
And let me just say that right off the bat, I think the knee-jerk reaction of the city manager, whose mind seems to never stop at any rate, was that the organization itself doesn't have to be. One can also set up its own nonprofit in order to be the sponsoring group for your own. That's a private business decision. I think as the council asked, and as Council Ellison mentioned that, quote, we don't want to give money to someone other than the one we're helping. I think the point that I heard them express was what they don't want to see, what they would rather not see, is they would like to see every cent that they provide to any of the applicants from RAP tax go right to that organization. With a sponsoring organization, oftentimes there's some type of a fee paid to it. So I don't think the expression of we don't want to give them anything either. I think the council likes to see every dime go right to the applicants, and to the extent the sponsor takes some of that as a fee. I think that's what the concern was, and always has been. So having said that, it's still one's choice. But one thing that the council certainly has the right to do, as well as the county, and that is to inquire at some point. I'm not saying now, I'm just saying one thing that the county anticipated was that they would look at what that fee was to take into consideration, because I don't think the county's probably as good-hearted as, probably at best are as good-hearted as the Washington City Council is. But they wanted funding to go directly to the group they want to. So that's the only concern I see with the 501c3, since they have set up that way. So.
Thank you. Mayor, may I address that?
Sure.
Attorney Starkey's brought up some really good points.
We have a
We're
solution for you. You're okay with it?
I'm sorry, if you want to speak, you have to come to the
Let's
mic.
let Jeff,
I was just going to say,
finish.
right, I'm with you. I was just going to say, Tuacah's willing to do it with no fees. If you want to take it through us and it's legal, we'll do it with 0 fees for free because we but we can only do it if it's legal. We do not want to jeopardize.
We were going to make sure that that was a part of any awarding, so.
Right. Anyway, if that's an option, if that's good for you, we'll do it for 0.
Again, we're going to do the sponsorship was anticipated, certainly by the county. We adopted that also. And until it's proven somehow that's an illegal process, then we'll look into it again. So far, it seems to be consistent with the intent why this was set up, and for those very reasons. And we like to think that the artistic groups around the county will work together and be co-supportive of each other anyway. So we appreciate them throwing out another option for you.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. And Attorney Starkey, you bring up some excellent points. When this has been an education process for all of us, this is not my first time in front of this council, and it was kind of a learn as we go kind of thing. I remember state laws being read as we were talking in this setting before. And so our intent is to eventually start our own not-for-profit arm where I think we'll be able to meet the concerns that Attorney Starkey's mentioned. But because that process takes about 6 months, this application process, we weren't able to get that done in time for. So, but I do appreciate that input. And also I think Attorney Starkey's last point about the interconnectedness and support of the arts community amongst themselves is a very true statement, as is evident by Jeff's comment and offer.
I think we're ready to try and divvy out some money or whatever you guys want to do.
I think from discussions I've had with everybody, my personal feeling is that Brigham's Playhouse has always been consistent with what the purpose and the reason why the rap tax exists. I mean, it's supposed to help, within our community and, the nature of those different ventures. The concern that I've always had is how do we get it to you, for one, because of the way the law's been written. And the other one is, I've stated this many times, my personal feeling is that those funds are applied for every year and granted every year, but it's understood that they're for this year. Next year, desires may change, councils may change, and the community may change. There may be things within the community that need to be addressed financially that the RAP funds are consistent with, and we have to make that judgment, year to year to year. So that's why I asked, what are your projections? If it's going into a budget, then that concerns me a little bit. And also with the 501c3, if there's a way to make it that, for you guys to get that status on your own, or at least work towards that status for next year. I mean, I understand it's too short this time, but I'd like to see that, that you're making progress towards those ends on, for future applications.
Maybe just let me throw out a proposal, see what council thinks. My proposal would be that we would go ahead and allocate $40,000 for this awarding and encourage them to come back in our June application period for July awarding again. That way at least we cover your licensing and get them well underway for the year, and gives us a chance for those reserves to continue to come in and build. So be a little bit conservative and running out to award everything. That's my opinion. Say let's award 40,000, gets them on their feet going for 6 months, gives them a chance to come back through. As mentioned, it isn't too cumbersome to come back on that. So
I would agree with that, especially since this is the first application that's going through, and there's going to be a little bit of feeling out what the law means, and how it's going to shape out over time.
Okay, I have a motion, and I have a second.
I didn't hear a motion.
I was gonna say, I was just wondering.
Oh, you just threw that out, didn't you?
Yeah, but I'll go ahead
Anybody catch
I'll
it?
go ahead and make it as a
May I ask
motion.
you a question first? Will that do it for now?
Yeah, the licensing fees are our big concern. We've existed by word of mouth advertising for the most part up to this point in time, and
You have a pretty good email campaign.
We got a lot of advertisers out here. If they attend every one, you're in good shape.
so our biggest concern would be the licensing fees. Thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion then that we go ahead and approve $40,000 of our rat tax funds to Brigham's Playhouse. Again, under the caveat to make sure that going under a nonprofit sponsor, as we understand it, does turn out, we run into legal challenges, obviously, if that happens there. So.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second officially.
Granger, aye.
Ellison,
Nice nine.
Turek, aye.
All right, congratulations. Hope that helps, Jamie. Took on.
Wait a second, is there any other ones?
Yeah. I thought we didn't do it last.
Oh, you want us to come up?
Not necessary,
I
but.
thought you said you didn't want to hear from me.
I don't, but I still like it.
Right? Let's see how he is. Who are you? My name is Jeff Fisher. I'm the Executive Director of Development at the Center for the Arts, one of my wonderful board members this year, and my boss is right back there. Go away. Kevin. So our CEO, Kevin Smith. And sorry, I didn't mean to scare you when I approached the stand. I thought I would just be helpful. So, and sidebar caveat, we're going to have to check with our attorneys to make sure that this is something that we can remain protected as Tuacahn, and you can remain protected as Tuacahn. I know that you've read the 2010 state audit that simply prohibits for-profits from receiving any funds, and so if there's a way that Washington County's figured that out and we can do it, especially if it's something as simple as licensing fees, for heaven's sakes. It's a one invoice transaction. So it should be pretty
That was
simple.
one of the things as a council we had a great concern with, and we've asked our legal counsel that, and he came back with a pretty extensive report last night. It looked like through the county's wording of their ordinance and state procurement, those types of things seem to be, so best that we understand it.
Right. I thought you worded it perfectly, and I think the thing that Kevin and I have had the pleasure of speaking at the state legislature, and one of the things that we love to do is praise our sister agencies. Hale Center Theater in Salt Lake City is one of the nation's top community theaters. So that's how recognized they are. And they have a place and a role, and they complement what we do. And so we're one of the state's only 3 professional theaters. And we have a very different role. We run under a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 organization. Some of our shows, I think, Kevin, one of our shows, Aladdin, with all the flying, was, how much did that cost? A lot. With the licensing to Disney and other things, some of these shows can cost up to $3 million. So it's a very humbling thing. And again, we're a nonprofit, so every year we start out at zero after paying all the bills. So anyway, you have received the application, and I'm sure read through all the things. We did add a sheet last night at the work group, just as some clarification points that you guys, some of the council members had asked about. So I guess I'll cover those with you. We have about 6,000 residents in Washington City that attend shows at Tuacahn. By the way, anyone who came out, thank you. There we go, right on. Appreciate you. And then, so that's about 20% of the Washington County patrons coming from your city. About 30% of those Washington City population going to the show, which again is an enormous amount. One of the things that, again, I feel like whether there's an appetite for the education of this program, what is the intent of the rat tax? Why did the state of Utah make it available to us to vote on in the counties and the cities. I worry sometimes that people don't know the answers to those questions and haven't done the homework and the research to understand that. I love tonight, Thad's gone now, but I loved what he did. He went back and said, what's the purpose of PUDs and why we do them? I was going to, we do a presentation on why RAP taxes. We proposed it together as a group. We supported it. It was a very difficult process. A lot of people involved and a lot of time. In short, about 170,000 of the 320,000 that Washington City will receive will actually come to Washington City from outside of your city. You are a bedroom community, which is an extremely important component of our county. I grew up in a bedroom community in Bountiful, Utah. I know exactly what it's like. It's my preference to live in a bedroom community. But you do not have the restaurants, hotels, and other retail services to generate the funds that you would need to get to that amount. You would probably be somewhere around, I understand, about the $150,000, maybe $100,000 range is what you would be able to generate if you did the RAP tax alone. So by partnering with Washington County, it generated more revenues for your city. And one of the things that we talked to St. George about is that they gave up some of their revenues that they could have used themselves. And their original intent was to give a lot of that to Tuacahn to help us to achieve what we're doing now, which is to address our depreciation and basically our asset, which is, if you will, aging. It's 20 years old. Our seats need to be replaced, our lighting, our sound, and we're also expanding, building a 19,000 square foot facility. And all of that is in the proposal. The other thing that's interesting too is that there's a multiplier effect that we never really talk about. And Jeff, if you don't mind, since I know you and you've shared your personal background with me, Jeff is a great example of this multiplier effect. He has a wonderful home here in Washington City. He's happy to live here in the bedroom community, but he works in St. George. So if you will, Jeff benefits both cities by his existence. So he benefits, they benefit, and so on. And therefore, as a county, we help each other. This idea of the RAP tax, the reason why we did it, and Mayor, you were there helping, and by the way, thank you, you were a huge influence, to do it together. And your leadership helped your city benefit from that, and that's what I really think about today. And then last but not least, when we did finish the bond, it closed on December 22nd. It was the longest process of my life. It felt like it would never end, and we finally did it, and we ended up with about a $5.6 million yield. So we were about $400,000 short of our goal. Now, ironically, that's the exact amount we had to ask you guys for, but that is where we are. And so what we're trying to do now is generate funds that will help us to mitigate those gaps in our funding to try to help us to meet those needs. And Troy, to your points, I love, I've been raising money for 2 decades, and there's a lot of cycles in the appetite for doing what they call multi-year grants and single-year grants. In our case, the reason why we asked for multi-year support was so that we could leverage the funds. As you know, if we were to wait for, in this case, $375,000 a year coming to us from the county and the municipalities, we would have never been able to accomplish what we're doing by building our building and upgrading our facility. We would have to wait 10 years and those prices would escalate. So in some cases, the strategy, by the way, you shared that last night, I thought was great. You said the city, if they have an appetite to do a bond, it would benefit you, and we believe the same thing for us. We worked with Ivan City to do this interlocal agency agreement, and that's exactly what we did, is use the bonding opportunity. And Roger and Jeff, you may be able to help explain that a little bit better about why using the bond and having money today is better than having money tomorrow. I don't know if you could help me with that.
I really think our council has a good grasp on it.
Oh, perfect.
A good example was just what we did with Sullivan Park issues. So I think they understand.
Fantastic. Okay, great.
I don't have problems with bonds. I mean, it's just what they're going for, how they're being structured, what entities, things like that. So.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
I get it.
They've learned to never ask me questions about math or money. So
that's
right.
right.
To help me.
Well, then I probably ought to be the wise one and be quiet and let you ask me questions. Do you have any questions for us about our application and what the funds are going to be used for?
I had one. I was trying to find some of the paperwork in your application.
I have a copy here.
Showing up. Maybe enlighten us a little bit, since I don't have the dollar figures in front of me. But as I recall, you guys have a relationship with Tuacahn High School.
We do.
That some of those funds come from you into the high school, if I recall that. Can you share a little bit of what that relationship is and how?
Yeah. So
what those funds do?
Tuacahn Center for the Arts is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has two components to it. One is the Tuacahn High School for the Performing Arts, which is a state-funded charter school. It's the state's oldest charter school, which is kind of cool. And it runs a budget of about $3 million every year, and it's self-sustaining. So all the FTE counts for the students go into helping support the students and the cost of their education. So actually there is no direct context as far as the amphitheater side of the business does not support the high school side of the business. The center itself, actually, that's the one we report as the 990, supports both entities. So, if you will, it is the one responsible for the building. Like, different than a for-profit, you, the people, actually own, if you will, Tuacahn because it's a nonprofit. So, the amphitheater side of the business is an $11 million business. About 8 or 9 million of that is actually the musicals. About $1 million of that is the concerts, and then about $1 million of that comes from the concessions and the gift gallery. About 95% of our revenues come from sales, and about 5% of it comes from external sources. And this is the first year we've received funding from public sources. Mainly they've been from, I shouldn't say that, we've received funds in the past from the state when we first got started, but in general, out of the 20 years, it's been very minimal. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so a little bit. So the 990, which I'm assuming
it's like your IRS 1040, form. It's nonprofits fill out. We fill out a 990.
Oh, so it's just a form, basically.
Yeah, that has all the same similar things that you would fill out in your tax forms.
I guess. So what was the transaction that I saw happening between? It was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that went between Tuacahn into Tuacahn High School. Is that? I guess
it would be actually just it would be just the opposite direction. They would actually, as part of their charter and their context, they would actually pay rent and
so that funding was going to you, wasn't on the expense side.
No.
Unless Kevin trying to refine it again, but it seems to me it was on the expense side.
Is that right? I got that right. So for a social worker, that's not too bad, right? Okay.
So Tuacahn High School is also supporting Tuacahn.
It's paying its rent and overhead costs. So no, it's a nonprofit. It really doesn't it doesn't generate us any revenue except to take care of itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, kind of.
Yeah. I'd love to clarify if I could, or Kevin can help if I've done a horrible job of that.
No, that's just
Kevin Smith, CEO at Tuacahn. If you don't mind me just saying a couple things. I recognize that we do not have a residence in the city of Washington, and that makes it harder for you because, of course, we always want to support those things in our own local community first, and so we don't begrudge that at all. We would hope you would support Brigham and others that are in your community first. So we don't want you to think that there's any competitive. We believe in the abundance mentality, that there's enough for all of us, and we can all share in fact, what's going to happen is the pie is just going to continue to get bigger because growth is inevitable in our community. We have such a wonderful community with good people. We see it continue to grow and probably stay ahead of those other entities that will be asking for money. And then hopefully you'll have that money grow for you and the things that you want to accomplish. So I don't want you to think we're here with this, that if you give somebody else too much and that's not enough, that we're going to be upset. We're here to ask for what you feel comfortable in giving us. But I just want to share a couple of things that maybe give you a feeling of what we're about. We want what we do at Tuacahn, and in our mission statement it says we want it to match the majesty of the canyon. I'm assuming all of you have been to a show there, and you know how beautiful the Red Rocks can be in our area. We live in a very picturesque, beautiful area. And I hope that our people, the entertainment, the integrity, the things that we do match the beauty of our surroundings. And that's our mission at Tuacahn. So when you come to see a play at Tuacahn, We want you to walk away having an experience with your family that's not only memorable, but it's so memorable that it's going to uplift and encourage you to be a better person. That's our mission. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So if you ever see anything that doesn't match that mission, I want you to send me a note or call me. And maybe some of you already have. I don't know. I can tell you, we did South Pacific. How could you screw up South Pacific? Well, we had 2 dams and 2 hells that were spoken in that show. And I got letters. And it's in the script to have a lot more than that. These are sailors in a show that South Pacific. And there was a lot more swearing than that. We took out most of it. But after we got those letters, we listened. Even in Peter Pan, which is a show we're doing this year, Peter Pan actually calls Wendy a certain name that the director wanted to try the first night. It's in the script. But after the gasp in the audience and mothers putting their hands over their kids' ears, it was out the next show. So we do have a commitment to family theater. That's our mission. And we want what we do to match the majesty of the canyon. And so I want you to be aware that you can be proud of what we're trying to accomplish there, and we don't apologize for that mission. In fact, if you go anywhere in the country, much of what you're seeing is debasing. It's a kind of theater that is trying to be edgy and trying to be worldly. That's not what we're about. We're trying to do the kind of thing that you could be proud to bring your whole family to and have a great experience. And tell everybody else to come and see it because they'll have that same experience. Just one story about that might illustrate what we're trying to do. Disney has been a great partner. They have that same mission, and they don't apologize for it. In fact, on Broadway, they get criticized for doing Lion King and Little Mermaid and all these shows that are, these family-oriented shows, but they laugh all the way to the bank because they're very successful. And they're not going to change their mission just because the elites in New York think they ought to do something more edgy or adult-like. We share that same feeling with them. And so that relationship has helped us to have some really successful shows and some wonderful shows that share a good message. I just want to share one story. In Little Mermaid, which we've done twice now, we have our Triton was about as tall as I am, except he's much more robust. He's completely painted in gold. And we're one of the few theaters in the country that actually invite our actors to come up where you can meet them after the show in costume. People love to take pictures. They love to have a great experience. And he tells a story about how one night he's standing there, and a little girl about 4 years old comes up to him and taps him on the thigh and says, goes like this, and says, "Triton, can you turn me into a mermaid?" And he picked that little girl up and had a moment with her that her mom just couldn't have paid for or expected in any other setting. And those are the kinds of experiences that we have all of the time at Tuacahn. That's what we're aspiring to. So I want you to see that that's our vision, that's what we're about, that's what we want to accomplish, and your funding will help us to continue that. And it will help us to pay for an aging facility. None of our funds that we collect from the RAP tax are going towards operations or to pay my salary or anybody else's salary. It's all for projects. For example, if you've sat in seats at Tuacahn and you move your seat a little bit, about 3 out of 5 seats squeak. It's because they're 20 years old. And we've even, for the first time last year, had to refund people's monies because of those squeaky seats. Well, it's $250,000 to replace 2,000 seats. We can cover our operations, but those kinds of expenses bury us. We have 5 or 6 rainouts, and we could have a losing season. So these funds will help us replace those seats, and maybe even add some cup holders, and make it a better experience for you guys when you come out. That's the kind of funding that we're seeking for from the RAP tax, and we just want you to be aware that that's where the money's going. That's one of the reasons why we're doing multi-year grants, is to spend that money now, because we need the seats now, but then pay for it over time. So anyway, I hope that gives you a little bit of perspective from my perspective of why we're here, and we just appreciate anything you can do to help us. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming that we could forward the emails that we're going to be getting, because we used Cal and Dan at least once in the introduction. Well, not twice, so I guess we're equal to Little Mermaid, but we'll be forwarding on to Mr. Smith.
Any questions or comments?
Well, I have some comments. I think that I've always learned, you can help me, you economic development people, that if you put one restaurant on a corner, you get a certain amount of business, but if you can put 3 or 4 restaurants on a corner, you really increase your business rather than compete. there's room for the Shakespeare Festival, and there's probably room for Tuacahn, and there's room for Brigham Playhouse and St. George Musical Theater. But what's the amazing thing is that the city is considering a significant contribution, whatever it is, to theater. Okay, we have a lot of other places we could put money in theater, and you know, by with Tuacahn and Brigham theater, it's significant. You know, what you're doing for the arts is significant, and I think it's because it does something for people. I want to just make this point about the difference between Brigham and Tuacahn. When I used to drive through St. George to go to California and Disneyland, okay, it wasn't until '94 when I bought a condo and knew that this was a place I wanted to plant my feet. It's now become a destination. It's become a destination because some things that occur here are unique to our area and worth, I think, some support. And Tuacahn is one of those. Zion National Park is one of those. And Dixie State University is quickly trying to become one of those. Those are things that we're known for and that we can build on and that help our development and help our cities grow. And I just that, you know, I don't need a long speech. I'm just suggesting they're part of this community, and they're part of our community, and the commercial aspect of their part of this community is important. It's important. And I have to say that I have admiration for the degree to which they have grown and created a draw for people to come into our communities, as well as what they brought for our own citizens. So I'm feeling that we need to provide some support. I think it's up to the council to decide if yes or how much. So.
Well, I certainly appreciate, because I feel the same way. Tuacahn is a great asset to our community. I've shared that with Jeff and those in our discussion. The biggest concern, actually isn't a concern, I guess I get torn between two situations for the mere fact, as Jeff even pointed out. The thing that Tuacahn does is helps the whole county. Now, part of the reason the RAP tax was set up what it was with a certain percentage going to the county is to go to those entities that do facilitate the whole county. And so, to me, these types of the funding that the county and whatnot is putting into there is where that should come from. What that does is allow us as cities to seed the Brighams and the other smaller ones into our own communities a little more, while the county is funding the ones that are multi-city beneficial, county beneficial. And so I appreciated Jeff bringing up the fact that really Tuacahn does benefit the whole county. It isn't just Ivans and it isn't just St. George. It's the county. The whole county benefits from it. Multi ways, not only from economically, but employment issues and supporting local businesses that help them out there. And so, to me, and I've shared this with Jeff, that my point is the fact that the funding really should come from the county to that. And as a city, I would leverage my pressure onto the county and say, look, this is exactly what you get that money for, is the Tuacahns that support the whole county.
The misfortune of that, I think, is that the county didn't put the money at that level into Tuacahn that was anticipated and expected, which has put them in a condition where they're having to go to every single city. I think that's wrong. I agree with you. I think that's wrong. I think it should have been done. Like they said, I don't think these people should have to go to every city and
that's exactly my opinion. It was exactly
so I think we ought to use whatever political clout we've got to go back and try to
pressure that. I agree. That's why I shared that. I would certainly push that way. Because what it does is that if they're pulling funds from the county and they're pulling from every city, it takes away from those funds that are then able to spread more seeds to generate these types out there of startups. And we have some that may want to start another theater. Or we talked about ball fields that need to be created for our citizenry. It just takes those away and puts them into, you talk about one restaurant, they go to one restaurant rather than multi.
Just a quick sidebar to both of them. By the way, thank you. An investment in Tuacahn is clearly an investment in Washington City.
Oh, we agree with that.
The ROI on investing in us will generate more revenue for you than
I'm not disagreeing. Like I said, Tuacahn to me is a great asset, and I'm not saying that it isn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dispute that either, but I went back and read several articles in the Spectrum and things like that on the RAP tax and when it was coming up. This is one, I forwarded this email to myself, or this article to myself, because one statement came out of it that was interesting to me. With respect to the fact that the county strips off the 15% and the rest of it's redistributed back to the cities, Commissioner Alan Gardner said that the county's allocation will be used for the arts, while much of the city's portion will be used for outdoor recreational opportunities. I don't dispute that the cities need to have some commitment for the arts. I don't disagree with that even a little bit.
And I stopped bringing around my, Jeff laughed at me, I called it my Sesame Street chart, which one of these doesn't belong with the others. But in Cedar City, Iron County, in Orem and other areas, almost 60 to 70% of the funds, of RAP funds, actually go to the arts. In fact, 50% is about the lowest. And so the fact that our county is spending 15% on arts is very different than the rest of the state. About 75% of the state of Utah now is engaged in RAP funds.
That may be the case, but I would also argue that Washington County is heavily driven by recreation and tourism as well, outside of the arts.
If you actually look at the numbers that Colleen mentioned, Zion's National Park is #1, Zion, and #2 is Tuacahn at about 85 million. And if you add up #3 through #10, which includes everything recreation, Ironman, marathon, everything, it doesn't equal 85 million. So ironically, I'm a big-time biker and hiker, and I love it, and I've made it a commitment not to have to beat up something I love to win on another side, but actually art drives more revenue to this area than recreation, including all the golf courses. So, and by the way, I'm a horrible golfer, but I golf. And I
don't know how much I agree with that, but that's a different argument or discussion. So
thank you, though.
Any other questions, comments? Carol?
Forgive my... I need to have you come up, please. Sorry.
Carol Long, Washington City. How much are they asking for? I somewhere missed that.
$6,422,032.
Yes, that's a 30-year commitment.
$25,000 for 20 years. 10 years.
Say that again?
$25,000
for 10 years. So you want an ongoing commitment. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody want to make a proposal or a counter proposal? Talk about it some more?
Yeah, like I say, I'm torn here because like I said, I do appreciate what Tuacahn brings to our community. I still philosophically believe that it's the county's responsibility there. I think as a political body, we need to wield that sword and say, look, county, this is what you're collecting that for. It's primarily that entity. I don't know where any other entity in the county that benefits the county like Tuacahn does. I don't know where they're spreading the rest of the money to personally. And I certainly would like to ask those questions to those board members to say, look, in reality, everything I've seen is that 15% really should be going to this type of an entity, and I don't know another entity that really pulls that.
Well, to pursue that with the county, though, will take time.
Certainly.
And we'd like to help with that too. We actually talked about doing that, so we would love to try to mix that up a little bit, as Colleen mentioned, so we don't have to go back out and do
I know I've had some discussions. I happen to have run into one member of their RAP tax board. Didn't realize he was, but we got discussing, and he said, "Oh, I'm on the RAP tax board." I said, "Good. We have an item we really need to discuss." And to be honest with you, we touched on it very briefly, but he said, "I agree with you."
Right.
But he said, "I'm one member of the board." And so I think that there's some work that can be done there futuristically. I really, like I said, to me, that's the entity that they collect those. Not only the RAP tax, they collect our transient room tax that should go to promoting and advertising these types of entities that really bring people to our county. And so that's been the argument as I've shared with you. I've just heard this song and dance more than once because I've said that that really is, they're collecting those taxes. Where are they going to? So they should be going to this entity, in my opinion.
Is there any margin in that 25,000? Can you go down?
But we'd be grateful for whatever you can do to support us. We really explain how it all fit together in the puzzle, and whatever Washington City can do to join the other cities, we think it would be great. You're our second largest city in the county, and we anticipated your support, and whatever support you can give, we'd be grateful for. And as Jeff mentioned, I think over the course of the next 10 years, we'll work on trying to modify that to be a little bit different than it was. But we also don't want to be penalized for decisions that we didn't have any part of as well. So.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, I do want to support Tuacahn. I do see the value in Tuacahn. With respect to what's going on at Tuacahn, I mean, you mentioned upgrades and things like that. I agree with upgrades, but it's a big expansion too. So I don't see a similar thing. I see the long-term bonds. This isn't about helping Tuacahn. This is about expanding Tuacahn a little in my book. But I do see value in supporting Tuacahn. I still go back to the fact that a 10-year deal is hard for me to swallow. I have no problems doing an annual review or an annual application. But I don't, and if this council awards Tuacahn, X number of dollars every year for the next 10 years, I'm okay with that. Perfectly fine with that. But to tell you today that I'm going to commit to future city councils based on my vote tonight to support Tuacahn, I struggle with that. So I'd be happy to make a motion, or if there's other discussion that wants to go on. My motion would be to grant Tuacahn $20,000 for this year, and to review it in another year, have a new application next year.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Turek, nay.
Second, Miller, nay.
Nice night.
Ellison, aye.
Granger, aye.
Okay. That passes 3-2.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You bet. Okay. Barry.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. After a late night last night, I appreciate you being here. I don't really think this is an application. I think, as we talked about last night, it's kind of a consideration for funding, just to let you know that there's needs also for recreation and parks with the arts. We're thrilled about the arts, and I'm happy for Brigham's Playhouse. I know with Jamie and Brigham's Playhouse when they first came here, as Cole and I visited from the community center and saw what a great thing that they had going and what they were trying to do. We opened the community center then with open arms and bent over backwards for them, and so we appreciate what's happened since then. They outgrew us really fast with their success and have moved on, and over at Cotton Town they're doing great there. We're thrilled about that and what's happened tonight. So basically that's all I'm here for. If you have any questions other than what we had last night.
Yeah, if I could add just onto that too. The only reason we recognize that when the council had a discussion with respect to this, that the city departments did not have, because the rap tax was intended for the council, it also the city department. So as we talked about last night, there are some park meetings, there might be some volleyball meetings, those type of things. We didn't see, we didn't apply for those because basically on council discussion, that was not necessary. The only reason I had Barry do this is to just make sure that we had this part of the discussion, because it is a little bit different and unique. Jeff talked a little bit about depreciation, this health depreciation issue. Well, technically, that's kind of what we got the same consideration, part of the same issue with respect to the golf course. Now, Councilman Bellison's comment last night, I think that's a good comment. If the council wants to consider it, if they consider a donation to the golf course, you want to earmark that to a particular concept, that makes sense to us.
I spent the afternoon reading 30 pages of a 2010 audit on RAP taxes. Thank you for all the reading you've been doing. But what became very clear about that is that you cannot, at the city level, though you can at the county level, you cannot at the city level use RAP taxes for maintenance and operation. Okay. So a capital improvement on those back holes that need to be replanted and fixed, that would probably seem to me to be the kind of appropriate thing that could be done.
Well, there's certain things in this city that we can't use. Impact fees for, and one of those areas that really needs attention is here in this park. It's a park that needs some attention and some money to go eventually, and we talked about that, and I know we put that into some considerations for the park also, but so that's what I was here for last night, just to make you aware of some of those needs and considerations for the future.
So that works, so yes, that works.
As the application came in, though, this application I find is inconsistent with what the RAP tax really should be used for.
We recommend you draw up the application.
I recommend that the application that was submitted gets to file 13 and we do a different application.
And we talked about that last night, because there's some other needs up there. There's some of that renovation that needs to be done. And some
And probably I would say, I would suggest that in the future, and maybe this was an error, that as per the discussion of the council, the city offices don't file an application because you're not going to be following the same procedure anyway as the applications.
I understand that, but not application request based on the city, based on this for distribution of RAP funds, I just don't find that this request fits within.
Yeah, I didn't know it was an application. I was putting in an application. I was just basically making aware of some of the needs that we had.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We didn't meet the application requirements if we did that. But it's a good point, and we want to make sure we do that right in the future too.
No, I think Klein State should fill out an application just like any other competing entities for those funds.
And that would be up to the council, but there was some discussion with the previous council that because we knew that at least a vast majority of the funds would go to some city projects, that we wouldn't be filing for those. It would be at the discretion of the council.
The council would make those decisions.
It wasn't that we would be applying as staff, it would be the council would be making the discretion as they have the right to do. So that's kind of the previous discussion. We'll do whatever the council wants us to do, but that's kind of at least the understanding we have.
So do we need to make a motion to approve or deny this?
I don't think that is something to take any action on.
Thank you.
You mentioned we're going to file 13, and so we'll just file 13 the application.
Thanks, Barry.
George Staley, a longtime resident of Washington. Some things that have gone on here tonight have been great. Some other things I'm concerned about. Especially what the city manager just said, that they feel like most of this money should go for recreation. The rest of the state, basically, and when this was proposed, this was to go mostly for the performing arts, and that's where it's going throughout the state. The city in the last several years has spent over $20 million for outdoor recreation. Out their golf course, the rec center, the new fields, and I support them very much. The $300,000 that you're going to take in is peanuts compared to the rest of the budget, what they spent. I feel like most of this money should be spent to help those young people that have a different desire than to pick football or basketball or soccer, even though that was my desire. I also am concerned that you treated two entities completely different. One here in the city that can help the city with their taxes, and the faster it gets growing, the more taxes you receive from sales tax. You had them come back in 6 months and they went from outside the city, you just gave them a donation for a year. I realize you didn't tie any strings to it, but I think the strings are there. And I feel like some of you, that they should get their money from the county. If we went to the county, I don't think they would give us any money here in Washington for that.
That's the case. Brigham's applied for it, we're denied.
That's right. You know what I mean? And if I would have been on the council, I couldn't vote if I would have been, because I have some interest in it. But my interest is financially. My interest is for the love of this community and the love of the young kids in it. Other than Jamie and some of those people, I see the excitement, the love that those kids have working with the wonderful people, Jamie and them. So I'd just like you to consider what the rest of the state's using this money for, and to help those in Washington. You know, you should have said, in my opinion, you should have told Jamie, that's not enough. We want to help you promote that thing so it'll grow faster. If you put more money into advertisement and promotion of that place, it would grow faster. They could become less dependent on you, and you could use your money other place. Besides, they would generate enough in sales tax to compensate that money that you're spending. Don't have the attitude that that $300,000 should be spent for outdoor recreation, which is my love, but I love the arts also. That money has come from other places, and probably should come from other places, till we get the performing arts on an even keel. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Are we done with the rat tax? All right. Award and bid an RFP. Consideration to award the bid for the boiler storm drain extension.
You want Elmo? Or apple?
Mayor, Council, we advertised and publicly opened bids yesterday on our piping project that will pipe the storm drain around the boilers. You have in your packets also, we've got it up on the TVs here, the bids that we got on the project. Our low bid on the project was from Precision Pipeline at $193,258.91. We have worked with Precision Pipeline in the past. They're a good reputable contractor, very happy with their bid. So we're requesting the council award bid to Precision Pipeline.
Oh, go ahead.
Are there plans in here for that? Because I'm not seeing the plans.
No,
This is just the numbers of the bid.
Correct.
What this does, council, is takes the pipe around the backside of the boilers, there's a storm drain that comes down across and goes around.
How far does it take it? Does it go past the fence, Mike?
I'm going to try to...
I've always felt like we maybe should be talking with whatever jurisdiction is in charge of that once it goes under the fence. It seems like we just...
It goes under the fence, and that's UDOT, and we've actually have been working with UDOT about that.
Are we piping that stretch as well?
No, we're not, because I don't know if you've been up there, it's pretty much solid rock, and it's a nice big channel.
So it just runs off a rock channel?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't been in that portion. They usually stop at the fence.
So here's the kind of the overview. In the right-hand upper You can kind of see the darker brown areas, that is the channel. Maybe I'll point it out if I can reach. This, we started the project coming through here, the pipe and then ran right at, I believe, about this point here, we crossed over into UDOT's right away, and we'll actually get the channel piped in here, and came down the channel here, and then this will all be backfilled and piped in.
What's the size of the pipe?
60-inch reinforced concrete.
And that'll keep sediment and whatnot from getting washed into the boilers there?
Well, yes, kind of. We don't get any real sediment from this line. We'll get some sediment that will come in from the road that is to the right there. You can see following up the fence line of the interstate. We will get some drainage that will come down there that falls on that property up there. Part of this project also is picking up drainage that's up in this area. Right now, there's just a bubble up box that comes across, and it's supposed to be actually, with the developments there, it's supposed to be channeled across, and the development.
Where are you at, sir? Oh, that's just, okay, that's just, I know where I'm at now, yeah.
So part of it, we also lay in the pipeline, storm drain line up there that keeps the drainage that's up on the way with this.
So this bid brings the drain up to that intersection as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Also with the project, we will actually be doing some slope and kind of fixing the sloping that's around the boilers there, making it a little bit more attractive.
Is that 60 inch, is that for like a 100-year flood, or is that something that's way out, way big?
Well, it's very large because we're actually attaching to a 48. So we've upsized from a 48 to the 60 where we're attaching on the upper end, that's a 54-inch pipe. So it is a little bit larger, but it will take everything that's coming down at that pipe. It's not a 100-year event because there's just no way we can pipe 100-year events. If we were piping a 100-year event here, we'd probably have twin 84-inch pipes going in.
Just do a big concrete canal.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, what are they doing at the Cotton Street right now with those deep trenches?
The gas company's putting in a larger gas line tying to exit 13 and Green Springs. No.
You pretty comfortable with their bid?
Very comfortable. It's the engineer's estimate, I believe you had it there, I think it was $224,000.
I saw that.
We actually budgeted $600,000 for the project, so yeah, very excited about it.
The rest of the budget,
We've got other things we need to do. You know, we've done a lot of things in the stormwater over the past few years.
On this storm drain, I know we've got a couple of, so you've got the Brio corner that goes under the road into a pipe, that feeds into this drain.
Correct.
And also the Buena Vista Boulevard, up the hill there, when that goes underground, it goes into this pipe.
Correct.
So it theoretically, yeah, the storm hit an exact right spot, it could flow full. I mean, it could fill right.
Well, you know, if you remember the past couple of years, some of those events there, it was a full pipe. We have the basin there that's right at the interchange of Main Street, and it was blowing out of there. The pipe was full. It couldn't take any more water. It was surcharging that pipe.
So this won't handle that much water, but it'll at least get it around the corner, avoid any blockages and any of that.
Avoiding, you know, breaching the dikes and overflowing and coming into the boilers, which in turn can come underneath the freeway and into the old part of town.
So problem a few years ago there on 200 was
right.
It's just coming over the top.
We also made major improvements up there since the last events up there. We've got the debris basins that we've installed up Buena Vista, the Brio development. They've enlarged that basin. There's also another basin to be built further up. So we've got a lot of really good improvements that are really going to help that area.
Brio has an additional basin upstream.
Yes.
On the debris basins that run down the freeway, what kind of maintenance is on those? Just out of curiosity.
Do we just have to go in and clean them when we
kind of
set
them out periodically?
Yes. And that was the main problem we had with the drainage coming down there was the sediment. Lots of rock, lots of debris coming down and plugging up our grades. So these basins will settle out that, slow the water down, and then it's also detention basins. So we'll slow the water down before we release it to where our piping system should be able to take the flows. We anticipate the contractor will start this within 30 days, and I believe March 1st. How many day project was it? 30-day project. Yeah, 30-day project.
It's quite the spread in those bids.
If you really look, it's not too bad. Low is a little lower, but when you take the low and the high out, they're pretty tight bid. They're pretty close bidding.
What was that number, if you like, you want to put it back up to force?
193, 258.91.
Mayor, I know the questions or discussion, I'll make the motion that the council award the bid for the boiler storm drain extension project to Precision Pipeline in the amount of $193,258.91.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Turk, aye.
Signal right.
Nice night.
Allison, aye.
Granger, aye.
All right, thank you.
Also, just a side note, we did look at the local preference bids. That bid number 2 is actually Washington City contractor, but did not fall within that percentage of bids. So I think they're at 12%. Yeah, 12%. Thank you,
Mike. Okay, report of officers from assigned committee. Anything to report? Even though you've just been assigned.
I don't have anything yet.
One of my assignments is legislative, and I wrote a letter to Senator Vickers of some issues that perhaps we could work on over the years. And I made a copy of that for you in case you want to add to it, or if you practically tell me I'm barking up the wrong tree. So I appreciate your input.
I'm glad you reached out to Senator Vickers. He in my estimation, has been very good to the city in his efforts and his consideration of issues we've had. You know, he hosted this when we were up there. I've enjoyed working with him and feel like he brings a good approach and really had a concern for Washington City.
He expressed an interest with phone numbers of how to do that and scheduling time as soon as we get up there.
Did we talk about meeting him beforehand?
I'm sure he'll be able to make time for us.
So, Councilwoman Granger, was this mailed already, and so anything I would have would be a subsequent letter, or is this a draft?
No, this is mail, but I'd be glad to add to it, and I would also be glad to retract anything that I did have the mayor review it the other night, but that was also after the fact.
I won't ask you to retract anything.
You could.
Anybody else?
Council, I'll talk to you prior to Monday about the legislative policy committee, because that will be on Monday. It'll be every Monday for the duration of the legislative session, and we'll just get on. You can get online. You can get right in your house if you want to come down here to the city offices. I usually have it just running and throw it right up. You can watch it and you can make comments as you're going on. So contact me if you have any questions about it. Some of the sheets I gave you will tell you the upcoming legislative policy committee meetings. It'll be noon on Monday.
Noon on Monday.
Yeah, but the email that I gave you in that binder will also will show you that also.
Are we planning a trip to the legislature this
Yeah, I
year?
was just going to mention that. So our plans are on the 15th, we leave the afternoon of the 15th, the evening of the 15th, whatever works with your schedule. That's actually a holiday. And then we plan on being on the Hill on the 16th. We have the UM's reception on the evening of the 16th there at the boardroom. And then whatever time you want to spend on the 17th, we'll be at that time.
With a return time to this city on the 17th evening?
Yes, whenever you want to leave, so we can come back earlier or later, whichever.
My wife will love that. I return home from Germany on the 14th. Turn around to Salt Lake.
Well, and again, if you need someone to go as a companion, as legal counsel in Germany,
you may have some.
It's been about 20 years since I've done that. Yeah,
we're at. If you need legal counsel for legal counsel, that's a big mess starting out, right?
How's that interpreter that?
Glad we gave you the wrong too.
I will just say for the new council members that I did attend the legislature trip last year after 3 years of avoiding it because of schedule, but it was really informative, really interesting. I really appreciated it. I know Roger and Jeff kind of bent over backwards to accommodate my schedule demands, but it was a very good trip, just from a personal perspective as a citizen and also as a representative of citizens. So,
Speaking of trips, I like Nuremberg too.
really, I've been to a few cities in Germany, and I think Nuremberg's got neat history. And hope to have a little time to go.
I lived there for 5 years.
Oh, did you? Okay. So
Apparently we have 2 volunteers.
Then you can take your brain a little.
If you need an assistant, I'll go with you.
There must be a base or something.
I lived about 30 miles outside of Frankfurt for 5 years.
Cool.
So,
You need a caddy, I'll have to go.
So that's more appropriate.
No, I think the 3 of us will handle it fine.
I'm sure it will. Anything else from the council? We'll have a city manager report.
You know, I don't even dare, after you got the rundown on every department last night, with the exception, I will just tell you a reminder that on February 9th is the Transportation Expo at the Dixie Center, and it's a great event. And if you have any time during that day to go on over to that, that's February 9th again at the Dixie Center, right?
do we need to pre-register?
No, it's just a.
We're there, our group's there, and all the cities are there. You can see how it kind of all meshes together. The MPO, all of them. This is
I
great.
believe it's Kansas City.
Okay, great, thank you, I didn't have that. Other than that, Mayor, I don't think,
Roger, maybe just, I know that the geotechnical stuff takes more than a week. We've got our pointers up, we're kind of just watching and waiting to make sure it's
Yeah,
on the road.
and I didn't touch on that, I marked it, because we did spend some time on it last night. But yes, the testing equipment is up, and we are going to move that along, start to try to get some answers as quickly as possible. As you know, we put up caution signs, lowered speed limits and really we lowered them pretty significantly out of an abundance of caution. And Mike will continue to, when he gets some settling, he'll continue to go in and kind of level that out.
Going to try to do that Friday.
As a
We got
layer
it.
of that slurry or whatever we call that.
Just the top mix asphalt, just go in and try to level it again.
We're hoping we can get some answers soon, and we're hoping we have some time, we don't have to start spending money before we have answers.
Any further concern with the transmission line?
Well, we'll continue to look at that, these markers will hopefully tell us, yeah, that as well. But we're working with the power department on that as well.
Council, I have an 11 trader whose father has missed his last 4 Wednesday night
Yeah.
basketball games. There's a chance I can
Get out of here, Mark. Get.
I'm going to maybe his last 10
Get out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Everybody want to adjourn?
Second word. Oh, sorry.
That was nice.
Nice enough.
And it's only 8:30.
Oh, wow.
It's early. It's early.
I know you did. When you came in and voted, I was proud of you. So, German blood in you. See how you are? I think you did. I'm on your team. Roger, thank you. Appreciate you. Did you get with Kim? Kim, how you come and say, hey, why am I getting different numbers?
Mayor?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. I got 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock, so we'll have an 11 o'clock meeting.
11:30.
So I have 11 o'clock meeting. So noon.
Jason wanted me to remind you that it sounds like the end of this line. Sounds like there's money you need to collect.